Okay, continuing our discussion of jazz walking bass lines. So let's look at the second 4 bars. So we've got an E flat 7 going to an E flat fully diminished. So since these chords are very similar, I'm most likely going to do something just based on arpeggios. So I could do something like this. Okay, so in that case, it's very simple. I'm just going 1, 3, 5, 3 on the 4 chord, and then 1, 3, 5, 3 on the sharp 4 diminished, and then doing a chromatic neighbor tone to get me back to the 1. To make it a little more interesting, I can do the same thing, but what if I just change the octave at the end of the arpeggio? So I could go 1, 3, 5, 1, 1, 3, 5, or any variation of that. Right. I just added a little hiccup, right? So that's basically what I would do there. Or if you're landing on this E flat, right, I could do something like this. There we go. Okay. Now I'm on the 1. I gotta get to the 6. So I got a few options. I could do an arpeggio and then a chromatic approach, right? Or I could do that just in an inversion, so I'm not going quite so high with my left hand. I could go arpeggio, right? Or I could do this. So I'm repeating the B flat and then just going down chromatically. Or I could even do this. So that's a very complicated chromatic surround, right? So I'm going 1, 5, flat 7, and then chromatic below the G. Okay, once I get to the G, right, I can go just like going from the B flat to the E flat, right? It's the same idea. It's going 5 to 1. So I can go 1, 1, 3, 5 chromatic down to the root. Or I can just go down the scale. Right? But since I'm playing a flat 13 here, I might go down like this. Or I can go up the scale. Like that. 1, 2, 3, 5, 1. Or I can do an arpeggio. Or I can do an arpeggio combined with a chromatic approach. So I go 1, 7, 5, chromatic, 1. Okay, now I'm on a 2 minor chord, so I got to get from the C minor to the F. So if I'm going to go up, I'm going to do this. Right, so I'm just going up the scale, 1, 2, flat 3, and then I'm doing a chromatic approach to the F. Or just like the other versions, I can do an arpeggio and then a chromatic approach. 1, 3, 5, chromatic approach. Right? Or I can go down the arpeggio and then a chromatic approach. So 1, 7, 5, chromatic approach. And then this is another 5-1. So all of our 5-1 formulas, right? 1, 2, 3, 5 to the root. Right? Or I can go 1, 2, 1, 3, 5, chromatic down. Or I can just go down the Mixolydian scale, right? I can go. Okay? And that brings me finally to the turnaround. So if we're on a B flat 7, we've got to do 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. Now we've only got 2 beats per chord. So I'm probably going to do just root 5 or root chromatic approach. So root 5 would be root 5, root 5, root 5, root 5, root. But even hipper is to do chromatic approach to each one. So I could do them all from above, for example. So root chromatic above the G, chromatic above the C, chromatic above the F, chromatic above the B. Or I could do them all chromatic approach from below. Root, chromatic below to the G, chromatic below to the C, chromatic below to the F, chromatic below to the B flat. Or even better, let me mix and match chromatic above and below. The most stereotypical formula is to go root, chromatic above the 6, chromatic below the 2, chromatic above the 5, chromatic below the 1. Right? So I'm going above, below, above, below. Or I can just mix it up. So you see, all I'm doing is this, 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 and then I'm just picking a chromatic note in between. So this, and then either chromatic above or chromatic below the G. Same thing here, chromatic above or chromatic below the C, chromatic above or chromatic below the F, and then same thing. That's how you do a turnaround. Right? Or okay, so there's a crash course in walking bass lines. Let me do a whole chorus, and I'm just going to follow my fancy and just do, I'm not even sure what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make it up on the spot. But you'll see it's going to be some combination of all of these formulas that we just covered. Okay, so here's a full chorus. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bumped the music stand. But so you notice the first time I just did the 5 or the 1 dominant in the 4th bar, I repeated it. The second chorus I did a 2-5. So yeah, that's an example right there. So that's the idea. At first I would pick one version and repeat it over and over and over again until you get comfortable with it, and then start changing just one measure at a time. So I might take the first 4 bars and I might go this. Okay, and then I'll repeat that over and over and over again until I get comfortable. And then I'm going to say, what if I do the same thing, but I'm just going to change the first measure. So instead of going, what if I go, sorry. So I'm doing up the scale, chromatic. Right? And I pretty much kept the rest of it the same. Right? And you notice on occasion, it's okay to just repeat a note too. So every now and again, I'll do something like this. I'll go like to get to the 6. Right? So don't be scared to repeat a note on occasion, but you shouldn't repeat it more than twice. Okay, so there's a crash course in walking bass lines. So to review, the root should be on the downbeat, on beat 3, hopefully a 3rd or a 5th, but not always. Okay, we do a combination of arpeggios combined with chromatic approaches, scale tones combined with chromatic approaches, and especially when you've only got 2 beats for a chord, you would typically go 1, 5, 1, or 1 chromatic approach to the next one. Okay? All right. Start practicing your bass lines. Practice the bass lines by themselves with just your left hand until you get comfortable with them. And then practice them with just whole notes in your right hand. So keep it really simple at first. Just do a whole note with the bass line. So see, I'm just literally plunking down my right hand. It frees me up to concentrate on my left hand. As you get more and more comfortable, you can start to do a little bit more rhythmic call and response between the two hands, like this. So now I'm doing like a little bit of like, pa, a little bit of downbeat, upbeat. But that takes a little bit more coordination and a little bit more thinking. So at first, just the bass notes, walking the bass lines with the left hand, then just whole notes in the right hand, while walking bass lines in the left hand, and then introduce rhythm. Okay, go start practicing your jazz bass lines over a B-flat blues.